my version of the story was I go to my friend B's house, I shoot up in her bathroom, and I wake up 4 days later, and I'm asking them like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're like, "You overdosed, you've been here since." I'm like, "No shit, all right," and I'm already scheming. I'm like, "All right, dude, how can I leverage this situation?" So I called my mom. I was gonna try to get some money from her, because I was homeless at the time. I just visited my friend's house. I was going to call my mom and try to get some money from her because now I'm in a situation where she's got to help me. And I called her. She didn't answer the phone. I was like, "Mom, you do this every time. Like, you always put me last. You don't give a shit about me. If it was TJ that called you, you would go. If it was Wade that called you, you would go. If it was Marco, you'd go. But me, you don't even answer the fucking phone. So I just want you to know, Mom, that all of my character flaws are a direct response to what a terrible mom you were." So my mom's version is that she gets a call from B, because I went to high school with Bridget, and she ends up calling my mom or messaging her saying that Grant overdosed and he might not make it. And my mom went and sat in that hospital for 3 days watching her son die. Didn't know if I was going to make it back. And she didn't leave until they told her that, all right, he's going to be cool. He's going to be all right. And she left because she knew that when I woke up, I'd be asking her for some shit.
So thanks so much for
Yeah.
thanks so much for choosing to interview with us today. I really appreciate it. So I usually just have people introduce themselves to the audience so they know who we're talking to.
I'm Grant Denton with the Karma Box Project.
Awesome. Thanks so much again for meeting with us. And we're here in Seattle, Washington. I got the opportunity last night to meet Grant in person. We've been social media friends for a while, but we met at an event last night. So usually, when I talk to people, especially when we're just covering stories, so talk to me about your story. Where did it start out? Like, where did you grow up? How did you grow up?
So I'll try to be brief with you. You can stretch all the terrible things out, and all the terrible things, like, yeah. So my childhood,
All the trauma.
all the trauma that was happening. You don't realize that, like, your whole, like, you're doing these things, and it takes a minute, like, for you to realize what happened, how you got to where you're at, this sense of awareness where you're like, oh, and it starts to make sense. You have a paradigm shift. So I spent 9 years on and off the streets, addicted to heroin and meth, in and out of the system. And then, eventually I got clean because I was facing 5 to 7 in prison. And then they gave me an option to go into drug court, go to rehab, go to drug court. And this process eventually was like, it was about 2 years long, right? Waiting in jail for about a year till you go to rehab. Rehab's 3 months, and then you have another year on top of that. So it was this extended process of recovery, which is absolutely important for me. I needed it.
How many years had you been using?
So I mean, it depends. So when I start my 9-year date is when I first got homeless. So, but before that, there's like this build up where you're managing things.
Yeah, there's usually stuff going on before we get into the extreme using.
Yeah. So I pretty much my whole life, you just trade one drug for the next, and you're going through these phases.
So now, did you grow up in a drug addict family?
No, well, no. My dad was an alcoholic, which I guess would, yes.
Yeah, it qualifies.
Well, yeah, it wasn't like, oh. Yeah, but he wasn't.
There weren't dope shooting parties, but
No.
we definitely were raised in an alcoholic environment.
There wasn't any of that. And when you track it back, my dad was just really abusive. There was 8 kids in the family, and he was just little patience, no tolerance. He would beat me and my brother. There's 2 of us that he really didn't.
Where are you at in the lineup?
I'm third, so there are 2 older brothers.
Same.
Yep.
Third, first girl.
Yep. So my playmate was my sister. So there's 1 girl, 7 boys. Yeah. My sister was like my best friend, which also got me picked on. I was in ballet when I was 6. I was like, and my brothers didn't really favor that too much. And their friends, like, because my mom, when you're one of a lot of kids, you're like jockeying for attention, like and so like my mom gave me attention when I would do the weird shit she wanted me to do. She was like, does anybody want to be in ballet? And I didn't even know what it was. And I was like, yes, I want to do this because I get to do shit. Do you know what I mean? I get to hang with my mom. And, and that got me picked on a lot. But anyway, so, you get clean, you have your little paradigm shift, and you start paying attention to how you got there. First, you understand that, like, you had a role in how you got there. And you're like, wait a minute, okay, I did have a role in this. It's not the economy. It's not your mom. It's not your wife. It's you, dude. It's you. And and then you start to get in. I got.
Well, what was your role? I mean, let's just break that down a little bit.
My role. I wasn't taking. Well, I mean, and I'm sure it's similar. Like, I wasn't taking responsibility for like things that happened to me. It's a lot easier. Like, the worse my life got, the worse of a mom my mom was. Right. The worse my life got, the more. So, and so I was molested when I was younger. When I was 11 years old, there was, and I held on to that. Like, I was really mad at this dude. I was mad at the people that were supposed to protect me. Your mom, the church, the school. Anybody up here, I just stopped trusting. I was an angry, angry little man. And that was about when I was 11. And I remember tracking. So that was my role in it, is not taking responsibility. Like, you can't, when you're a kid and somebody does something to you, you can't take responsibility for that, but you can own it. And I wasn't owning my shit. And there was like,
did anybody teach you how to, though?
No.
And so I think sometimes we are pretty hard on ourselves, right? Because I held my 6-year-old self responsible for things for a long time, and I just didn't have the skills to do it, right?
Well, when somebody does that, so like when I was, here's the framing of that is when I was younger, like I said, you jockey for attention in a family with a lot of kids, and my aunt was the coolest dude. She looked like Debbie Gibson with fucking hair. She was a bodybuilder. She played basketball, and for whatever reason, she favored me. She was always like, Grant, what's up, man? Oh, dude, and she would grab my little muscles, like flex on her. She's like, look how buff you are. Look at your shut. And she made me feel like important. And so she was so nice to me, and she favored me. And so me and my aunt were really close. And then one day, my mom came home, I don't know, 6, 8 years old, something like that. My mom came home and she sat all the kids down and she's crying. And she's like, you guys, I have terrible news. Your Aunt Kathy is a lesbian. And we're like, what? No, not a lesbian. We didn't even know what a lesbian was, but because of her reaction, we're like, maybe she died or something. And it turns out that she liked the same sex. Well, the problem with that is that my family at the time disowned her. Like, no, that was it. They like kicked her out of the family. And so, you fast forward to when I'm 11. And I'm going to these piano lessons with this guy in the church. He was well respected. He played the organ in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. This is a big deal. And when you're poor people, anytime there's free shit, my mom would like sign us up for it. Go, and she like, I didn't want to play the piano, but it's free stuff. So she would just sign us up and go, and I went, and this dude, when he started doing what he did, my mom always told us, she was like, if anybody ever touches you in a weird way, you got to let me know. But the problem with that is the way what he was doing, I thought that I might have been gay because of what he was doing and what he had me do. So I didn't want to tell my mom that, because then you run the risk of getting
kicked out.
You get kicked out of the family. And so it was this whole summer just the work, like, and when you feel so dumb and you feel so stupid and you feel like it's not a good feeling, Yeah. And so, all this, and eventually, like, you have to weigh shit out. Like, I would rather be kicked out of my family than deal with what this dude's doing to me. And I remember telling my mom, and instead of calling the police that I thought was going to happen, she called the church, and then there was this movement of a man, and the things, and I was so freaking angry. I was so mad at just everything, and that was when things shifted. That was when you stop learning from these guys and you start learning from those guys. Like the lateral learning when you're and that's what
you couldn't trust anybody anymore.
No, F you, you're cool.
Yeah.
you know. And so yeah, so that's what that's and I held on to that. I was just mad at everybody, and every time like something got weird, or every, what do they call it? They call it a maladaptive response to the world. Like I didn't want to have to respond to the world because I felt like the world's done me wrong. They owe me some shit. Do you know what I mean? And they don't. So yeah.
Yeah. And so of course, a natural progression often ends up in drug addiction, right? So what happened? So, okay, so you ended up getting arrested
Yeah.
and you got the opportunity to do drug court. So what kind of drugs?
So it was heroin and meth for me, and I liked them both. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and
How was the kick for you? What did it
oh,
look like?
it was the worst. Right, and here's the thing though, I would go through the worst kicks. I was doing methadone, so I didn't get dope sick,
Yeah.
but I'm still chasing, still getting high.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you were prescribed methadone through a methadone clinic and you were still using heroin.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there are no requirements, huh?
Well, no, they would do random drug tests, but they would tell you when you're doing the drug tests. And me, being a really good drug addict, I'm just bringing some other piss. You go in the bathroom by yourself, and I would bring in other piss.
But it had to have methadone in it, right? The other piss. Okay.
Yeah.
So you knew people that would piss for you that
Well,
were
we all know each other.
right. And some people weren't using drugs, and so they helped you out.
Yeah, we all help each other out. When
Yeah.
you hang out in that line long enough at 4 a.m.,
Yeah.
you're gonna know folks. But I remember the thing with that is that I went there because I was trying to stop, and I was getting dope sick, and I didn't want to be sick, and so and of course you're optimistic for a minute, but there's more to it. There's more than just being optimistic right now in this moment. You know how many drug addicts that are recovering that tell me, like, Grant, I don't even feel like I want to use now.
Oh,
Is that right? Is that right? Yeah. Dude, I'm so ready. I'm gonna start my business, get my kids back. I just don't even want to use ever again. I'm good. I'm like, right now, bro. And then so you have these optimistic moments. And anyways, so I went there, and the thing is that I remember when I first got there, they gave me the protocol of 30 milligrams, and with that 30 milligrams, I was nodding out throughout the day, and it hit me. But then you go in the next day, and I remember the lady, she was so nice. She was so cool. When you come up and you get your dose and you tell them your name, you show them your ID, and she's like, she put her hand on my hand, and she's like, how you feeling? I was like, what? I didn't know that was the cue to up my dose, And that was the cue. She's like, how you feeling? I'm like, shitty? Give me a couple more milligrams. I got up to like, I don't know, 95 something milligrams.
yeah. I know people that are over 200. Like, can you even take it? Like,
But the thing is though, it's all meant. She was the nicest lady and she was sincere, but I don't think we understood what was happening, right?
well,
I'm
yeah.
gonna tell you what I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah. Lay that out. What was happening?
Well, we want, like, the whole gig is that this is artificial feel good. We don't want to have, the reason we do drugs is not because our brains are broken. It's because we're efficient problem solvers. If I have a problem, which is I don't feel good, then I'm going to solve it in a way. And so every time I went up to this window and this woman placed her, and then I learned how to manipulate this, where I'd be like, and then I would drag these stories out. And it was part of the gig. It was part of my sick mindset, because that's how I solved problems.
A drug-seeking mindset.
Well, yeah. Not not that it was the best way to handle things, but that's just how I was, and I would try to get the idea is that, like, I think when
Well, I mean, you're honestly like no value judgment, right? Like you're just being a drug addict.
well, yeah. So, you look at, like, overdose, right? It's here. Like, this is where you overdose and you almost die. And the art of being a drug addict is mastering the art of overdose. Because a regular dose, you wouldn't really feel anything. Overdose, we want to get as close to here as possible.
Without dying.
Without dying.
Right? Oh, I know. That's how I shot dope for a long time.
Yeah. How can I do this to where I can get closest
How
to
can
death?
I even seize? Right?
Yeah.
Like I'll take it all the way to seizure and
Yeah.
flopping around. Make sure somebody's there to throw me in the cold shower, but I just don't want to go all the way.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was it. It's just get as close to death as possible. And then when your life is deteriorating, and in mine, when I was homeless, it's where you don't realize how terrible things are until, like, it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. And so when you're just in these things, doing it and chasing this, I remember, like, when I got clean and thinking about I would, or, paying attention to my thoughts back then. I think that's important when you recover, is to remember how you thought right back then and be able to articulate that now. And but I remember I would fantasize about dying, fantasize about, because I remember we did this exercise in one of the detoxes where you have to write your obituary. If you were to die right now, what would your obituary look like? And then you write one if everything goes right. And I couldn't get past the if I were to die right now one, because it was fucking pathetic. I burned all my friends. I burned my family. I've burned everybody. And if I died, I don't know if anybody. I'm sure my mom would show up. My granny would probably be there. But why would anybody show up, dude? And it was pathetic and it was sad. And so I had this, like, fantasy about dying on the streets, and I would visualize like a puppy running into the street, and I save this puppy and die doing something admirable, or I save a kid from getting hit by a car and die doing something admirable, or an old lady is getting robbed and I jump in front of a bullet for an old lady, because I'm gonna die, like, but I want to die doing something good, because I'm a shitty person right now. Not that, like, but that's how I felt, and but yeah, I remember that mindset. And so, but in that same, drug addict mindset, we're just trying to kill yourself, Yeah.
Right. So when you first went to the methadone clinic there, you had sort of this idea that you wanted to try to get it together. How long did it take for you standing in that line to just sort of forget that that's why you were there in the first place and just dive into the methadone haze?
Well, like the next.
The next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because now it's part of the gig, right? You're well, plus the other people are around. If nobody else there is getting right, you're around a bunch of other sick people, right? And you got all these low frequency folks.
So environment.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I've been to some.
I like that you call it low frequency folks.
Yeah, no, they all operate on a low frequency right now. Well, yeah, because we're all sick people in the same room, and there's nobody guiding us, right? There's nobody nudging us or giving us new ideas other than teaching. I wouldn't say teaching, but I know that there was, like, we learned the rules. Like, we're good at manipulating, very good.
Yeah, but it almost seems like, especially with what you described with the lady that was giving you your doses, that manipulation wasn't even necessary. Well, no. It was maybe encouraged a little bit, but
I don't even know if it was encouraged. I just think that she didn't really think this out.
So she believed that maybe, and who knows how many other grants were in front of her saying, "Oh, I'm pretty sick," right? So
yeah.
So how quickly after you got on methadone did you start using the street level drugs again?
Oh, within a couple of days. Well, because then I knew I was just me. I mean, it wasn't like I don't want to manipulate things. I can't wait to do this so I can fuck it up.
Well, it's a normal drug.
Yeah,
manipulation that's just what we do.
Just what it is, dude. And no, it was just it was a few days. I think but yeah, for me it was just a few days.
And so you're completely 100% abstinent today.
Oh yeah.
And so what happened? How did that happen? How did you get off the methadone? Well, when did you stop using the drugs before you got off the methadone? Or talk to me about that.
So,
because in drug court, they do you.
Yeah. Well, so when I got locked up, I was on probation. I had an okie doke probation officer. So I would get high before I go there, because if I was too low, they would notice, and if I was too high, they would notice. So I would find this medium level of high before I go visit. And I went to go visit my probation officer, like I do every month, and it was a different guy, and he actually UA'd me, and I lit up the panel, and so they were sending me to prison, and I was doing methadone. I was doing methadone, heroin, meth. I was doing all the shit, and so it took about, when I went to jail, about maybe. It was about a month of just just a terrible, terrible withdrawals. It was heavy. And then when I was locked up, I remember I would campaign to all the people. I'd like write letters and be like, hey, can you put money on my books? Hey, can you put money on my books? And some people would, most wouldn't. They'd give me $5 here, $20 here, just because they felt sorry for me. But my granny was my ride or die. Granny would send me 100 a week, sometimes 150. And I wrote her a letter, and she wrote me back and said that she's not gonna support my lifestyle anymore. And I wrote her a letter back and was like, "You're the worst granny in the whole world." I'm trying to shame her, and she wrote me back and was like, "I love you, Grant. If you want, I'll send you some books." I'm like, "What the fuck am I gonna do with some books?" And then when I was in there, I started reading about meditation and mindfulness, and I did a little meditation. I like followed the instructions in this book. I learned to I planted my feet, put my hands, I breathed the circular breath, and I visualized what they told me to visualize, and then at some point I just started to cry, and it was the first time in my life that I've ever been just present. I've always been worried about some stuff, or panicking about this, or looking over my shoulder, or all that. And it was the first time I've ever been present, and I was like, whoa, it was wild, dude. I was like, what the was that? So I wrote my granny, like, "Dear Granny, sorry about saying the terrible shit. Can you please send me some books on mindfulness and meditation and breathing?" And so she did. And in this process, I started to work out a lot too. I changed my schedule because I learned about frequency. Literally, I read about frequency and that how low frequency people can bring you down.
Oh, yeah.
Even if there was they did this study where they took a pin and they put a motor on it and they dropped this pin into still water and they turned it up to a high frequency, and this pin, from moving so fast, created a beautiful flower in the water. And then they took another pin, they put it on a motor, and they stuck it right next to it. They turned it to the same high frequency, and then it created two beautiful flowers in the still water. And then they took this one and they lowered the frequency down, and it just went from a flower to just an ugly ripple. And not only did this low frequency pin mess its flower up, but it messed the flower up next to it. And this pin is operating on a high frequency, but being next to, and I remember looking out over this sea of convicts, and this whole room with just low frequency dudes. And I'm like, oh shit. So I changed my sleep schedule so that nobody would mess with my flower. I didn't want to engage with any of these. Not that they're bad folks, but right now.
Well, yeah, their energy would overcome you.
Yeah, I didn't want. So I changed my sleep schedule. I remember thinking, I'm like, dude, I'm 34 years old. And I haven't worked a real job in 9 years. I got kids that I haven't even fathered. I gotta be stupid. And so I figured, if I'm stupid, I'm gonna be the best looking dumb dude. So I'm gonna train. I'm gonna start lifting. I'm gonna be dumb, but have a good body. Be the best looking dumb motherfucker in the room. And so I started training. And but the thing is right. So I'm training.
And you're 100% clean at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm training and I'm reading and I'm training. I'm reading and it started to really I started to like myself, because I was learning things and I was able to retain information. I was plagiarizing these books because that's how I remembered it. I'd have to read it, remember it, and write it. So I learned how to learn again, and I learned how to remember things. And it was cool. It was really, it was new for me. And then there was this commercial when you and I were coming up with this guy. He has an egg, and he's like, "This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs." And he would crack it.
Yeah.
Like any questions, you're like, ah. Drugs are gonna fry my brain. And every time I got clean, I would think about a fried egg because I'd done so much drugs. And it's true, drugs do fry your brain, but they also don't tell you that you can grow a new brain. You don't even need your old brain. When I was in there, I read a book called Spark about BDNF, brain derived neuropathic factor, that it's a protein that when you that help lubricates connections in your brain. And how you create this protein is the two of the top things that created is exercise and learning, having to remember things. I was like, dude, they didn't tell us. They told us how we could mess it up, but they didn't tell us how to get out. There was no commercials by the way, you can also grow a new brain.
Yeah.
There was just you're going to fry it, and there was fear and you were scared. But so I started learning and exercising, thinking about a new brain. What is a new brain? You know, and then
Yeah.
I think that like I had this, you know, like I realized that like the drugs, you know, where I was drugs are bad, drugs do their job, right? They do exactly what they're supposed to do. Every time I shot up, I got high. Every time I drank, I got drunk. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. Problem was me, you know? And so when you got into that like mindset, I like really just focused on me and not about the drugs. Drugs are going to do exactly what they have to, you know? There was like this shift, and you know, or you think back to when you were using, and you would stop, but you just stopped drugs. It's all you didn't do anything, you know. And I was focused on, because you have this identity crisis now. You don't know who you are. Like drugs wasn't a drug problem for me when it came to getting clean. It was an identity crisis. I didn't even know who I was, you know. And so I had to like, and I knew that now. Now I know, right? And I remember before I left, I was just reading and exercising, and before I left, I read two quotes that like, because I needed something simple. You know, I needed something simple to hold on to. I read two quotes. One of them was from Anton Chekhov. He was homeless and an alcoholic with his mom, and he started to head down a life of crime. And then at some point, he made a vow to himself. He said, "No more bowing and apologizing to people. No more blaming and complaining. No more disorderly living or wasting time. The answer to everything is work and love." I was like, "Shit, that's it. It's simple. Just shut up and go to work." And then I read something from the Dalai Lama in the same breath that, or in this, I don't know if it was the same day, but they were back to back, where I was like writing it down, and I folded it and I kept it, you know. And the Dalai Lama says, "You're not entitled to the fruits of your labor. The only thing you're entitled to is your labor." I was like, "That's it. So nobody owes you shit. You put your head down, you do the work. Everything's a gift. All the fruits are a gift, you know."
Yeah.
And so I just took that. When I got out, I was just committed to just working as hard as I could.
And you didn't get back on methadone.
No, hell no.
Okay, well, yeah, I appreciate that. So, a lot of people in the world don't know that it's possible to get off of that kind of stuff. So, hell no, why?
Look, so same. I thought the same thing with cigarettes. When I got out, you have an opportunity, because everybody, like, you know, when they get out, they smoke. Everybody at these meetings, everybody at the IOP, all the stuff. That's the thing, right? They smoke, and I refuse to smoke because it's why. Why am I smoking? For what? You know, and like, do I need to, am I taking the edge off? Is it to be social? I even wrote a list about when I smoked.
Okay.
I wrote a list. So I smoke when I wake up. I smoke after I eat. I smoke this. I smoke when I get uncomfortable in situations so that I can do this, right? I smoke when other people are smoking so I could be part of something. I smoke. So I list why I smoked, and why, and I don't, but when and why. And I don't need to smoke, right? People are like, "Well, if I can't have, well, it's not meth," you know? Yeah, I get it. It's not meth. But why? Why are you smoking? So why would I
I
need?
wrote a similar list. I
Yeah.
wrote a list of whys, and then I went and did some research on what actually happens, and I found out that my whys were lies.
Well, so, and that was it. So why would I need to do that? And I want to be like, I had an opportunity now, right? So like, if you look at, there's 108 emotions, right? That's why these Buddhists have 108 beads on the rosary, right? So then, and 108 is like a sacred number, right? But they take these emotions, and you got all the way from the top is serenity. Nothing can fuck with you. And you work your way down, more emotions, and you get to happy, then down, then you're content, then down, you know, and all there's emotions in between there. And then you have sad, then you have boredom, anger, covert hostility, and right on the bottom is death. The one emotion above death is apathy. And it's like a survival emotion. The way they explain it is that like, this is, you go into a condition of apathy because it's keeping you from dying. Because if you were to feel all the terrible feelings that you earned, it would kill you. So like, I knew that like, even if I'm sad, doing all right, I get to feel stuff. And even if I'm angry or feel less than, at least I'm feeling stuff. And at least, you know, and so like, I knew that like, these artificial alcohol. I had a friend, I got 7 years clean, and he was like, "You'll probably drink now and be good." I'm like, "Yeah, for what though? Like,
Right.
I like it when
Me
I'm
too.
sad.
I
I
like,
love it.
look, wait, I like being clear and present
Yeah.
for all of it, right?
Like,
For all of it. I have no desire to escape today.
there's not one person out there. Oh, I know a few that would, but they're actually drug addicts. But there's not one person that, like, if your check engine light comes on in your car, you'll probably go get that checked out. You'll probably figure
Yeah,
it
not
out.
when I was on dope though.
Yeah, no, I do not
the
ride to the.
axles ground down.
Yeah, I'd Sharpie it out. No problem. Or like, if I got to click in the tires, I'll turn the radio all the way up and like, problem solved. You know, that's drug addiction. We Sharpie out our check engine lights. We turn up the radio so we don't have to hear stuff. But your engine's gonna blow. That tire's gonna pop, homie. Do you know?
Right.
And so, like, I don't want to. If I get anxious or sad or feel a certain way, that's our cue to navigate something, man. Something's going on. Do you know?
Yeah.
I want to be on it. I want it out because even at your best, you still got problems, you know? And so how do we, and every problem you solve today sets you up for being able to solve a bigger problem tomorrow and a bigger problem. Now we're evolving.
Right. And
you know?
you will have built the skills to know how to navigate it when you get to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen folks that can't take an L. I'm like, you should be getting L's. Like, that's part of the gig. But we have folks that can't take L's, and it's because, like, we just numb ourselves. We try to get away from all these things and don't like to feel stuff, you know? Yeah. They say, like, drug addiction's like driving a truck down a dirt road, full speed, right? And you got that tail whipping dust behind you. And then when you stop doing drugs, you slam on the brakes and all that dust
Yeah.
like covers you. And part of recovery is being able to sit in your own shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And not.
Because what we do is the dirt's too much, man, and we gas it again. Do you know?
Yeah.
So we're trying to outrun all this dirt that we're creating. And the gig is like, you better learn how to sit with your shit and when you cry, right? I looked at, when I was in jail, I had a better understanding of why I'm crying. I'm not crying because I'm, soft. I'm crying because I earned every tear.
Nothing wrong with being soft. It takes a lot more strength to be vulnerable than it does to be a hard ass.
Oh yeah. No,
way more.
Yeah. And they, that's what they say. There's two things you can't do at once. You can't protect yourself and grow. And growing requires you to be vulnerable. Your underbelly's exposed.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, then I was aware of these things like that's it. And I wanted to, man, if you took this much of your life and you fucked it up, it's your duty on this part to do good shit. That is all. Like, that's the balance. And so like,
is that what you're doing today?
Yeah.
Talk about that. What does today look like? What does life look like today? What's changed for you since you got out?
Okay. So I was so hungry. I wanted to learn stuff. I had all these mentors. I would ask business owners. I would ask judges. I was hungry, and people wanted to mentor me because I was like as aggressive as I was at being a drug addict was as aggressive as I was at like climbing out. I just wanted to learn. What are you gonna do? You gonna kill me? You gonna fucking kill me? Oh, you're gonna take a house from me? It's fucking homeless, dude. You're not gonna take shit from me, right? Like, okay, right? You can have it. So like, there wasn't like any risk assessment. I win at every risk assessment. What's the risk of trying this? Oh, I fail again. Like, you can't fuck me up worse than I've already been. Like, worse than and so like.
What are you gonna do to me that hasn't already been done?
That I haven't done about that. Come on, and I had a like, and I think you were talking about it yesterday. I had a fuck you, watch me energy.
Yeah.
Like when people like, and I had a lot of folks betting against me, which was good, because if this is gonna motivate me, if this isn't, then watch me, and I was as aggressive, and I'll die trying.
Yep. Take a seat. Be right back.
Yeah.
Let me know how you feel.
I was a 50 Cent of recovery, like get rich, die trying, or get recovered, die trying. Right? Like that was it. And I remember there was a time when I was in my program and I was crushing it, dude. I was doing good, but I would watch these guys in the program do really well too. They had jobs, they got their weight up, they're exercising, they're making they're going to all their groups, they're passing every UA, they're paying their fines, they're doing all this stuff. And then after they take their picture with the judge and their certificate, within a couple of weeks, they fall off again. They're back on the streets, they're back in prison, they using again. And it concerned me. And I asked my mentor, I'm like, why is that happening? Why? Because those dudes are great, man. Because we'd all get sat off. Jimmy really fell off. Like, why did Jimmy fall off?
Yeah.
He was doing so good. And she was like, well, there's three kinds of motivation. The first motivation and the strongest is fear motivation. That's what you're in right now. You're afraid you're going to go to prison, right? And it's the strongest, but it only lasts as long as the threat.
Right.
So when you graduate,
threat's not there anymore.
No.
It's kind of like when guys walk out of prison. And I'm like, the air is different on the other side of that gate.
oh yeah, no.
So you know, and so everything I teach is like, you know, what was it like the day before? What are you not trying to go back to?
Yeah, you better figure it out. And then she was like, the second kind of motivation is carrot and string, right? But the carrot's got to get sweeter and the string's got to get shorter. And at some point, you'll have to get another carrot. And this is why people that they got 5, 15 years clean, and you're like, how did they fuck that up? Well, because they had to get new incentives, right? They had to get different motivations. And once they get, I want to get my kids back. You got your kids back. Now what?
Yeah.
I want to get a job. All right, you got a job. Now what? And so you have to start creating these things. And she was like, what you need while you're in this fear motivation is you need to find your growth motivation. What's bigger than you? Don't make it just about you. Don't make it about today. Don't make it about things or people or any of that. Like what's bigger than you? And so I was panicking. I was like, fuck man, you're looking around. I'm Googling growth motivation. What are other people doing? And then at some point, a different mentor that I had was like, you know what you need to do? You should go talk to somebody that was close to you or knew you when you were active in addiction and ask them their version of your story. Mm-hmm. And don't correct them. Don't try to, when they say some shit, don't try to be like, no, man, I didn't steal your credit card. I stole the van. Nobody cares. It's their version of the story. Yeah. And so I went to my mom, and I was actually trespassed from her house, and she let me come in. If you talked to her now, she was like, oh, I was so worried, because what I would do is I would get out, get clean. She would open up her house to me again, and then I'd break her heart again. And she'd open it up to me, and I'd break her heart. Just this series of breaking my mom's heart. So I get it, dude. And I was like, if you don't want to do it, it's cool. Like, but can I come talk to you about that? And she was like, yeah. And she finally let me in. And she told me a story of my overdose, my last one. That was in my version of the story was I go to my friend B's house, I shoot up in her bathroom, and I wake up 4 days later, and I'm asking them like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, you overdosed, you've been here since. I'm like, no shit, all right. And I'm already scheming. I'm like, all right, dude, how can I leverage this situation? So I called my mom. I was going to try to get some money from her because I was homeless at the time. I just visited my friend's house. I was going to call my mom and try to get some money from her because now I'm in a situation where she's got to help me, Mm-hmm. And I called her. She didn't answer the phone. I was like, Mom, you do this every time. Like, you always put me last. You don't give a shit about me. If it was TJ that called you, you would go. If it was Wade that called you, you would go. If it was Marco, you'd go. But me, you don't even answer the fucking phone. So I just want you to know, Mom, that all of my character flaws are a direct response to what a terrible mom you were. Because I wanted to punish her. I wanted to punish this woman for making because I didn't take. Because it was her fault. I didn't know some shit.
She didn't protect herself.
Yeah, you should have protected me, and I'll fucking put it in her face. I'll punish her. Anytime something went bad, I'll show her that. Remember this document? Exhibit A. You fucking my shit up. And
yeah, see what you did to me? I'll show you.
Yeah, watch this. And I want to punish her. And so I hung up the phone. I took the catheter out, which is weird. I don't know if you ever done that, but that's wild.
Yeah.
Pa! Took the catheter out, took the shit off me, and within an hour, I was back by Jerry's Nugget, getting high again. That's my version of the overdose. My mom's version is that she gets a call from B, because I went to high school with Bridget, and she ends up calling my mom or messaging her saying that Grant overdosed and he might not make it. And my mom went and sat in that hospital for 3 days watching her son die. Didn't know if I was going to make it back. And she didn't leave until they told her that, all right, he's going to be cool. He's going to be all right. And she left because she knew that when I woke up, I'd be asking her for some shit. And that's when I was like, wow. Like, I didn't understand, like, the impact. I was so, like, in the frame, and I didn't understand the impact that I had on the world around me. And then, so when she told me that, I'm like, fuck. dude. So like, if you understand how much damage you can do, then you can also understand how much good you can do. And if you believe in this universal law that whatever you put out is coming back, homie, like it might not come back the way you put it out, but it's coming for you. And the cosmos, they're balanced, right? And they don't discriminate. And if you believe in these things, then it's your duty to like do good. You must. You don't like that's it. And you're not reserving your condo in heaven. You're not doing these things. This is about like your duty, you know. And so that
It's your
was
karmic debt.
you must like you owe some shit on me. You did some stuff. You gotta pay. So I was like, that's it, dude. I want to work with people just like me. And at that time, I had already like been managing sober living houses and started to play. I spoke really good about recovery. I'm like, dude, that's what I'm gonna do. Like that's all I want to do is just help folks. Do you know? And I think that when you pick the hill, you know the hill you're gonna die on. That's it. You know, like I'm dying on. I picked this hill, I'm dying on it. You know. Yeah.
So what does life look like today?
Good. It looks really good. I got my sons back. One of my kids is 18, living on his own, doing well. My other kid's 15, crushing it. He's like a little mini me. It was terrible. The cool thing is he's exactly like me. The terrible thing is he's exactly like me. Like it's all the little shit that you know. Anyways, but I started. I moved to Reno to do sober living, and ended up finding like my niche and working with the homeless population and the addicted population. And so I have an outreach program that we're contracted with the city of Reno. We're contracted with the city of Sparks, the city of Carson City. I operate a non-congregate shelter, so it's mod pods, individual mod pods, 50 of them, but it's an emergency low barrier shelter. We also have a transitional home, and I operate a program called GRIT, and it stands for Grow, Refine, Integrate, Thrive, where we grab folks that are in transition from either the streets or prison, and we pick them up from their the treatment houses, and we take them to the gym, teach them how to box, hit training. We also go volunteer, and we also do some wellness classes. And so, yeah, and we're just growing. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of people that are transitioning into independence from the GRIT program?
Yeah. Like I think the idea is when you're working with the homeless population. So we'll just start with the homeless population. And you can, when you say homeless, it's this overarching umbrella, and you're like, okay, which homeless issue are we talking about here? So like, we'll take somebody that doesn't have a home, then you, in that group, then you'll isolate it down to somebody who has an addiction, and then somebody that could co-occurring, maybe there's some mental illness with it, who knows, right? But you'll never get to this. You'll never get to the mental illness part unless you figure this addiction thing out. Do you know?
What do you mean by that? By figuring it out?
Well, look, dude, when I was on the streets, I was diagnosed bipolar. And I like that, right? And now I see him.
Now you have an excuse.
Yes, I have this here. Don't act like I'm not bipolar or anything. Like
it says it.
Validate. Look, why did you freak out on me, Grant? Well, sorry. But the gig is that like I was a freaking meth addict, dude. I'm gonna be manic. And my granny was like, there's a chemical imbalance with this boy. She couldn't figure it out. My grandpa was like, what's wrong with this kid? And they're chewing his face off. There's got to be something, And like, but they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. And of course I'm going to be manic. And of course I'm going to be depressed. When your life sucks, you should be depressed. If you're not, then you got problems, right? You should be depressed right now, And but I was, and so it's difficult for us to, there is mental illness issues, but you'll never know what that is if somebody's actively using.
So in other words, what you mean by figuring it out means people can't be significantly or effectively diagnosed unless they're clean. That's what I'm hearing you say.
I'm going to answer your question with another question.
Yeah.
How?
How what?
Can you effectively diagnose somebody that's actively using?
Well, no, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And this is something that I actually know because I worked in behavioral health, and I was the peer counselor, bottom rung of the totem pole, bottom rung of the ladder, right? And so in all these really well-intentioned 25 and 32-year-old mental health professionals who were getting your diagnosis from the DSM-4 and 5, had never been a junkie on the street. So when they're saying, hey, so-and-so may be schizoaffective or they may have schizophrenia, I'm like, I'm pretty sure they've been up on meth for a month. So
Be honest with you. Have you ever heard of the shadow people?
you know what I mean? So yeah, so no, I'm in agreement with you. Absolutely. And so, and one of the things I like to do when I talk to people is like, don't take it from me. Take it from somebody else who knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. And
So yeah.
it's so
Yeah, you can't. You can't. And not like 2 or 3 days.
what logical look, I'm not banging on people, but like we have to look at like, can we agree? We can all agree. Everybody in the world, yes, that when you do drugs, it makes you a little bit different, yeah, and that when you do drugs over a long period, extended period of time, that it changes you. That it completely changes you. Now you're not the same. I've seen guys that have been off of crack or meth for 6 months, 1 year that still do crack and meth things because we're conditioned to do this because that's just now we're that person.
Yeah.
So it takes a minute, but like you have to like you can't diagnose someone's behavior while they're actively using because we can agree that like drugs do something to us. Yes.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, especially the long periods of drug use. No, I had a forensic psychiatrist tell me who did a psychiatric evaluation on me when I was at risk of losing my kids when I was in prison, that you cannot rationally diagnose somebody unless they've been clean 3 years. But that 1 year really should be the shortest period of time when we actually try to give somebody a mental health diagnosis.
Yeah,
And I would agree with that based on exactly what you're saying, because I mean, take into consider pause, right? So post-acute withdrawal symptoms, and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and there's always, even when you get clean today, you're gonna have a shadow. We call it the shadow, right? Like that.
I still have stuff. I still get. I've been clean for going on 12 years, and I still see stuff out of the corner of my eyes. I still hear stuff sometimes.
We've created some pathways, right? And they make sense at the time. Then they're still there, though. Do you know? And so anyway. So I think in order to get to this mental health thing, you have to address the drug addiction thing. And so like when you say about homelessness, when it the goal when we work with homeless folks who are, let's just say that they're financial and a social, and I'm not saying that people don't have inherent value, right? I know this for a fact. I have value, and I had value even when I was at my worst. It was in there. It was in there, or else I wouldn't be here. So it was in there. But like, if you look at the financial and the social liability of being a homeless drug addict, you maybe sprinkle a little bit of criminal shit in there, right?
A little bit.
Okay.
How many homeless drug addicts did you know on the streets when you were homeless that didn't commit crimes for their drugs?
Well, all of us did. We all stole from each other.
Right. And then everybody else.
Well, it's part of
And
the
especially the most low-hanging fruit.
Well, if you don't...
Thank you. That was just for the audience confirmation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, if I don't have an income...
Drugs ain't free. Do you think drugs should be free?
Let's see. Let's make it easier for this person to fuck their life up. Like, all right, boys, I got a plan.
Oh my gosh,
this person
is
is currently fucking their life up. Let's just make it.
Well,
easier.
there are people who think that we should just make the heroin truck free, and except for it's all fentanyl.
Well, what's gonna if you're a lot of reasons, like, so you got two opposing ideas, right? You got the far right because it's political. There's a lot of political shit going on.
We've turned the human problem into a political problem.
Yes. So you have the far right. That's the bootstraps approach. Get off drugs and get a job. Well, that works 0% of the time without some sort of catalyst. But then also, if you look at it, this is in a philosophy of an aha moment.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen and you're going to be like, are you going to go to jail? Yeah, go to jail. And without the right direction or the right help, that you're just going to figure it out. So this is based in an aha moment philosophy. Then you have the far left, that's love them till they figure it out. You good? You want some more dope? Can I just throw you cool? Just whenever you're ready, bud. But this too is also based in the philosophy of an aha moment.
Yeah.
Why would we have an aha moment in this place when things are easier and they're safer?
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing.
I want to push back on that word safer.
Well, that's the word that, yeah, because you
Right.
have to define safe.
Right. Those are the labels that are
Yeah.
sort of thrown out. I would argue that there's no safer with anything that's
there's
going
a
on these
few-
days, but
There's a few words that we have to take back. Safer
yeah,
is one of them.
we need to redefine some stuff back to the original definitions.
Can we have that back? Give us safer back and give us compassion back.
Oh, thank
Can
you
we
so much. Yeah.
So can we have the words back? Here's the thing, right? So there is, let's just say that people are going to die.
Yeah.
People are dying. And
They're actively dying more now than they've ever been in my entire life.
people are dying. And that's across the board. And there's costs to everything. There's the cost of doing it right, the cost of doing it wrong, and the cost of doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And we have to identify like what is the right way to do it. And people are going to die because this is what they say is that on this side, they're like, well, let's just keep them safer and love them and make it easier until they figure it out because people are dying. Well, wait, people are dying over here too. People are dying right here too. So let's just agree that people are dying. Now, coming from that space, how do we create a system that's going to make less people die, right? And so you look at it like there's this thought experiment. I don't know if you heard of it, where there's the trolley. A trolley's coming, billowing down the road, down the tracks. Trolley's coming, and you're standing on this hill, and the train tracks split, right? The train tracks split this way, and on this part of the train tracks, there's 5 people, and on this side, there's 1 person, and you have the controller where you can shift which way that trolley goes. Somebody's gonna die. Do you shift it to the single person, to 1 person, or do you shift it to the 5, or do you do nothing at all, or do you do nothing at all and it hits the 5, or do you make a conscious decision to shift it to the 1 person? People are gonna die, and we have to make a decision that's where less people die. You know, because you want to save them, yeah, but they're going to eventually die anyways. We can agree that when you're active drug use and you're on the streets, you're serving a death sentence. So there's a sense of urgency. We have to pay attention to that. And they asked that question too. They asked the Dalai Lama, like, what would you do? Would you not do anything and let 5 people die? Or would you pull the lever and kill 1 person? And and the Dalai Lama was like, well, I would throw myself on the tracks to stop the train. And like knowing that unless you're willing to throw yourself on the tracks, like somebody's gonna die. Do you know? And it sounds insensitive, but we have to like just come from a place that's what it is. Do you know? And our job as homeless providers or addiction specialists or whatever is to get somebody, well, as homeless providers, right, is to get somebody from a condition of being a financial and social liability to being a financial and social asset.
Do you think that that's really what's happening in that space?
No.
Or do you think that's what should be happening in that space?
I think that's what's intended. And
do you?
Well,
I'm just asking questions because I worked in that space for a long time, and that was never the intention. I think that was, yeah, it's almost hard to say it, honestly.
Because if you ask somebody, you say, do you intend for these people to be self-sufficient? Yes.
But you know what, though? I cannot tell you how many people far above me in the hierarchy would say they can't. So we've developed a system where we're taking care of everybody, and we think that we have an exponential amount of money to pay their rent and to take care of things, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was a problem for me when I worked right here in Seattle in social services, because if I'm putting the guy that's strung out on crack and bringing the streets into the apartment, and he spends all of his rent money, which happened quite frequently, then when he came back to my office the next month because he needed his rent paid for, guess what? My job was to make sure that he stayed housed. We never taught him how to be housed. We never taught him any skills to maintain his housing. We never taught him how to pay bills. We didn't even teach him how to shower, for Pete's sake.
So here,
and so that's part of my challenge with the whole thing. But
I'm with you. I tell guys that I work with, there's the quote, it says, do not succumb to the soft bigotry of low expectations. Right? Like if somebody doesn't expect much of you, the fuck do they think of you? You know? And of course in the beginning we're gonna want people to give us stuff because that's how our drug addict brain is conditioned. It's easier. We go for the easy way,
Right.
right?
Well,
Immediate
that's
gratification.
it's not even just drug addicts. I mean, all people. You know what I mean? We see that all the time. It's like, oh, there's this government program and they're giving out money. Hey, give it to me. Give it to me. We always want to take the easy way.
Well, and that's just what it is. And you look at like so the and yeah, so it's do what do you don't expect people to be able to do it or your expectation. I mean,
I usually get pissed off when people tell me that somebody can't because yes,
we don't know that yet. We don't know it yet, right? Based on what you see, maybe, right? Who knows? We don't know that yet. What we have to do is put more focus in identifying who you're fucking with. A lot of times when I work when I'm working with folks coming right off the street, you have to identify one of two things right out of the gate. Are you part of the solution or are you part of the hustle? Am I part of their hustle? And often you're part of the hustle. And so we have to identify who we're working with. And if there should be some sort of we need to have better assessments of who we're working with, and we need to challenge people.
Let me ask you this though. Have you ever seen somebody that was part of the hustle have a shifting moment where they become part of the solution? Because I have.
But
provided they have.
Well, so what yes, but it takes a couple of times, right? It takes working with them where they. So I've had what you see is usually if we're part of the hustle, they're manipulating the system, and then they'll be out of the program,
sure,
right?
I get it.
We have to hold space for people to make mistakes, right? And if you're really working with folks, we don't just go off of why. We don't just go off of what the behavior and then the consequence. You go off of the why the behavior, right? Mm-hmm. When we work with people, there's 3 things we pay attention to, or that is the why for the behavior is when somebody breaks rules, right? Did they break a rule because they're being malicious? They just want to hurt somebody? That's different, right? You deal with that differently. Did they break a rule because they're being reactive? I get it, homie. Like I would react that same way too back in the day, but now you can't punch somebody when they talk about your mama. That's just what it is. Is it because they're being reactive or is it because they're just stupid right now? They just did some dumb shit. So we have to look into why people do what they do and then respond accordingly, because there's going to have to be a cultural shift and a behavioral shift from what we know that keeps us alive right now versus how we're going to have to behave when we enter this new social bubble. So there's cultural shifts and there's behavioral shifts. There's conflict resolution on the street or these.
So do you guys, when you're serving somebody and it's just obviously it's not going to work out this time, how many times until they don't get any chances anymore with your program?
I don't think.
Are there 70 times 7, essentially?
Well, look, man, you ask people, if you ask a room full of people, no regular folks, right? High achieving people, and you're like, all right, who's ever tried to change their diet before? Raise your hand.
Right.
All right. Who's ever fucked that up before? Raise your hand. Okay. And that's just broccoli.
Well, this is the thing. No, that is such a perfect thing that everyone can identify with. Right? So I appreciate that.
It's part of the gig. And so what it comes down to is how much work are you willing to do, provider? How much work are we willing to do? And when is our job done?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And part of what happens in how things are right now is we're being fucking lazy. We're being lazy.
Everyone. And we've taught the population of Americans to be lazy too.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, it's good. Oh, you poor thing. Here.
Yeah. Well, and watch this though. Watch. So, and I believe, like, look, dude, you put boundaries in when you work with people.
Yeah.
And don't take your work home. Yeah,
okay.
Nice fucking try, right? You're like, I dream about our people.
Yeah. Well, it's life.
Yeah.
It's life.
Well, dude, and
it's deep and powerful work. First of all, honestly, all of it, including the stuff that I didn't always align with, has kept me clean all these years. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's
for the grace of God, go I.
Yeah. Well, and that's it, and especially like because you have folks. Like, and I'm sure you're the same. We're dying on this hill, and so I'll figure, and I'm willing to do the work. I'll take it home, and but we have to we like have to.
I took it home so much that I backed out of the work I did for the local, freaking city and government and NGOs and developed my own stuff because same
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, I took it home. I live it every day, so I get it.
And the thing is like, are you willing to do? And I'll see in our line of work is that you have frontline workers that have got about a 2-year half life, and that's because they take it home without proper management, right?
Right.
Without and then
You got to know how to manage it if you take it home.
yeah, you better figure that out and make it and like make it make sense because if you're gonna do this without like it's gonna happen, we can't say don't take it home because that's not real. They'll take it home.
It's not.
How do you
The work is too personal,
No,
too
dude.
close. What do you do to not take? What do you do to manage it so
Well,
that
so-
when you take it home, it doesn't stay residing in your body?
Well, one of the things for sure that I know that works is for me, and we've spoke about it. We've like everybody's like self-care. Okay, where you meditating, you doing yoga, you exercising, you have hobbies. Okay, cool. That does help a little bit, but I think the most important is acceptance and understanding that this is part of the human condition, and also what are you learning from it? Like I take everything. I look at it like that. Like what can I learn from this? How can we this? And when people die, they're dying, dude. We have people die all the time, and we have to learn how to process this and set it up. So there's a level of acceptance of the human condition. And you can't forget that this happened because you'll have to remember the process. And there's some things that are out of your control, right? But what can you control in it? Like if you work in this field and you do it for a minute, you're gonna be a bad motherfucker, right? Because you can figure you're able to like.
You're making me feel cool right now.
Oh, you're pretty fucking cool, man. Like, well, that's it. That's like you learn how to be a good negotiator. You can read people. You're the most patient. I'm like, you can't fuck with me. I work with some of these, like some difficult people right now. I'm sure you've taken over. You get attacked a lot by the people you work with.
Oh man, call me whatever you want.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like, the other day, a guy told me that he fucked my mom. And I was like, you fucked April? I was like, you better be careful, dude. She's super clingy, right? She's going to call you all the time. You know what? So like we know that it's not us, and you got to learn how to take a bit of a beating, but it's part of the gig.
Well, it's not personal, right?
No.
I mean, it's really great practice for what we do in our personal lives. So.
Yeah. I remember there was a couple that was in a tent, and dude, and we're moving the tent, and I just want to like the things that happen, right? And that you got to be calm for, and we're asking, hey guys, you got to get out, so we got to get you to move. And it's this guy Matt and this girl Melanie, and she sticks her head out of the tent, and she's yelling, "Give me my fucking pants!" And I'm like, Matt, you should give her her pants. And he's like, no, she's talking to you. I'm like, what? I was wearing these green pants. And she's like, give me my fucking pants. And I'm like, what? She's like, my sister gave those to me, you mother. And I'm like, Matt, I'm going to leave. Can you have this remedied by the time I get back? Came back a couple hours later, and they're packed up in that. But the tent is the last thing to go. And she like looks out, and she sees me. There's another guy in the tent, big guy. And she like says something to him. And he comes out, and he walks over to me. He's like, hey, bro, give her the fucking pants. So anyways, I gave her the pants. No, I'm joking. I didn't, but I told. Anyways, the point is like we have to. We're learning how to deal with all the things and all the stuff, and you learn how to become a better person in the process. But what it comes down to is how much work are we willing to put in, and when is our job done? And I believe that there needs to be a push, among other things, but there needs to be a push for how do we take care of the frontline workers. My guys they're a check or two away from being a client. Do you know? How do we take care of these guys? How do we like properly train them? Do you know, to where they're more efficient, to where this is a job they want to keep, right? We have such a high turnover rate. And if we're supposed to be building trust with our clients, and our staff is coming and going, right? Every time you meet someone, you have to start over again. Every time I get a new staff, I have to start over again with that client, you know? Especially if they started to like somebody or trust somebody. The reason I'm so effective in my job is because I'm on these streets. I stay here, you know, and I've seen the people cycle through. And when they see me, I'm a familiar face, even though they motherfuckered me a few times, even though they boned my mom. Do you know what I mean? All these, all these things, right? Like like I didn't get any, like some of the most successful people in that came out of my programs that I've done. I do the dance with, right? I lead and then they lead, and then I lead and then they lead. Now, when you do this dance, you got to be willing to dance with folks. You know, I think that's, yeah. Anyways,
Thanks, Grant.
thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.